Okay, hey there guys, this is the second part I was talking about. I think there's still going to be one more, maybe two more. So this one is just going to be basic rotation, like basic, like what is he doing, and a couple unique things about him and some very useful things about him. So in this fight, I wanted to show off a little bit more again of that double trigger of the energy vulnerability and energize, because I feel like for bigger fights it's actually really important for him, especially once you get him duped in like high sig. The energize goes up to a 60% and the energy vulnerability goes up to a 200%. So those add a lot of damage and a lot of power gain, which for Nimrod, power gain is a lot of damage, as a lot of his damage comes from that SP2. So when you're ramping him up, if you're not going to be entering eradicate mode, which you enter eradicate mode when you're at 10 of your Titan or Blitz charges, which right now I'm at 7, and you get them from doing various things. They just kind of like stack up through the fight. You'll just kind of get them. If you're going against a mutant, you just get them like super fast. Against other champions, you get them a little bit slower, so it's important to learn the timing of triggering both stances' effects during one special, kind of like this. I was finding it so you kind of want to do it when there's like a little bit left, because if you do it when there's not enough time, the mode switches actually before your special starts, so you miss out on one effect. Or for the SP2, if you're in orange going to blue, you have to make sure that you have enough time for your SP2 to finish, or you're going to severely lack damage by one or two of the beams not giving shocks. So it's important to understand the different timings. Like, let's say I had thrown my SP2 there, like I would have done no damage because I would have gotten the unstoppable. But here, because I waited, I get all the shocks, so I nuke him down. In this video, you'll see me getting hit a lot. I don't know. MCOC was feeling like really stiff today, I guess is the way to put it. Like, I don't know. It's just like I was tapping my phone and just nothing was happening. I like literally had an issue where I'm like tapping and like it did nothing. It was really weird. So this is another Winter Soldier fight. Sorry to bore you guys with Winter Soldier. It's a good place to like show it out a little bit. So if you notice this team, I was running double Archangel Psylocke, so that is 3 romance synergies, 2 of those being a 6-star synergy. So it is quite a bit of extra power gain, and then I was rocking Gold Pool, which the Gold Pool is basically like having a mini prowess. It's an 8% special attack bonus. So it's going to make his SP2 hit harder, and the romance synergies are going to give me just a lot more power gain. If you're noticing like how much energy or power I was getting, part of it was I wanted to test if his energize or vulnerability could stack. They do not stack. If they stacked, it'd be wild. Pardon me. Wanted to show his SP3 really quick. I'm just going to skip the animation. It gives you the self-repair, so for a node, if you need to have a regen on you to do something, you do have access to it, so it's really nice. He has access to a bunch of different stuff, right? You can stack 2 to 3 debuffs very easily. You have easy access to passive damage. You have easy access to unstoppable, to 3+ buffs rather easily, if I'm being honest. You have access to heal unstoppable passive shocks, reduction in special attack damage. Like, there's a lot, which this next fight gets to show off pretty well, because one of Nimrod's better utilities, in my opinion, maybe not like his best, but it's a very useful one, is the fact that he is ability accuracy reduction immune against mutant champs. So either Magneto, Domino, any node that reduce your ability accuracy to do something, he just completely bypasses it if there's a mutant there. So it makes like this Magneto pretty easy. This Magneto wasn't necessarily like the hardest fight to begin with, let's say, but the ability to be able to parry with a metal champion, right? Because like you could use Sentinel for the Magnetos, but then you have like no ability accuracy reduction, and it's just kind of like bad. So Nimrod has that advantage that you cannot reduce his ability accuracy, plus he has a lot of other stuff going on for him. So if you noticed on that last SP2, it was basically the reverse concept of what I've been doing with the SP1, where I was trying to get it so that way when I would throw the SP1, I would trigger both of the effects. It also works the other way, where like if you throw the SP2, let's say, at the end of your yellow phase, and it goes into the blue phase during your yellow, you won't get the shock damage from it unless you're in Eradicate, And so you have to make sure that you're throwing it, if you're in the orange and you're not in Eradicate, that you're throwing it with enough time for all the beams to hit to apply the shocks, because the shocks are where you get like almost all of your damage. In this fight, even with special attack damage being increased, unless you have the Eradicate, the shocks just won't do much. Wait, yeah. You just need to be able to like use your special 2 with the shocks. Without the shocks, even though I have 10 prowess, the prowesses won't really affect it that much because most of his damage is meant to come from the shocks. It comes from other places as well, but it's primarily shocks. And right there, when I have 2 of those power drains stacked up on him, it's pretty noticeable like how much it drains. It's a fairly substantial amount. It's nothing like crazy. It's not like you're using like Doctor Doom and just like removing all of their power, but it's quite a nice bit. And when you have all those prowesses and stuff, doing 5k a tick, it's quite nice on the shock damage. Like, that's clearly what he was designed for, like, obviously, but he does it very well. And that's an important part in this game, is doing your niche, doing what you're supposed to do very well. He handles Magneto super well, especially the white Magneto, because of all the prowess you're able to remove. So for this red Magneto here, it's in the Elsa chapter of 7.3. So it has the heal, it has Berserker, and all that stuff. So you get to see a couple different things. Like, first off, the armor break does not remove any of my armor up buffs, because, right, the armor up buffs increase your attack rating. So if, let's say, there was an aggression armor break node or something like that, he might not be too great for it, but because he's actually immune to the effects of what the armor break does, of lowering his armor and removing the armor ups from him, makes it quite nice. And then here is another nice thing about him for fighting the red Magneto, because I wanted to do the 2 Magnetos back to back, is with red Magneto, shock effects, or shock debuffs, I should say, have reduced damage against him, right, by 90%. That's why, like, you can use him for fights like Doom and stuff, is because the shocks don't do as much, stuff like that, right? But he only reduces the effects of debuffs, so passive shocks, passive bleeds do their normal damage. So because Nimrod's SP2 is a passive shock, it doesn't get reduced here. Now, I feel like it's doing less damage than it should be, but it's clearly not getting reduced by 90%. I'm not sure exactly why it's doing less damage. It might be Magneto has high energy resistance. That's something I guess I should check on, but I don't know currently. And again, right there with the armor break applying, I didn't actually lose my armor up buffs. So it makes Nimrod actually a fairly good counter for both of the Magnetos, I would say. That fight was just taking a bit long, so I just quit there. So I got to Wolverine in Realm of Legends because I wanted to try him out against a very high regen buff fight. I also want to try him out against buff or regen passives like aggression regen, but as long as I'm staying in Titan phase here, I'm basically just shredding the Wolverine because I'm removing his regens constantly, and for every regen that I remove, it does, let's say, 2,000 damage, because it looks like 500 a tick, and it does like 4 ticks. So it's about 2,000 damage per regen that he triggers, which is quite a substantial amount. Like, it's not obviously a game-breaking damage doing 2,000 damage, but when he's supposed to be healing, and you're just reversing that and doing 2,000 damage, like, this fight is clearly not as fast as, like, Torch with, like, Max Despair or something, but for a champion that's not reversing the heal to cheese, I think this fight is fairly competent for a champion, because it's not like I'm heal blocking, I'm not, like, cheesing this fight, right? I'm just using a champion that removes the buffs, and if I don't keep up the buff removal constant, it will not go well. And so I believe it was a 75 hit fight, which is fairly decent for a champion, right? Like, again, it's not a cheese option, but it's pretty good. Here is another advantage of his shocks being passive in this fight, or these next 2 fights, actually. So when I was doing this quest, I was using Black Widow Deadly Origins a lot, because she applies just a ton of shocks on her hits, plus with those shocks there, you'll always be doing a ton of damage, you'll always have it, right? But the main issue is, you want to use your SP2 with Black Widow Deadly Origins, as it does a ton of damage if you have shocks on them, right? But when you knock them down, they get right back at it, which makes them debuff immune. So when they're debuff immune, the shock debuffs go away, and so it makes the biggest hit of her SP2 not do any damage, because you're also having the 90% damage reduction from no shocks, but because his shocks are passive, they stick after right back at it applies, keeping the damage buff going for your special, and having your highest damage output not get reduced because the shocks are increasing the damage because shock vulnerability, and then you're also not having to deal with the shocks getting removed because they're debuffs. So it's kind of like a double whammy, because Kabam has been really liking this type of node design in Act 7, where it's like, use this debuff, you get a buff advantage, but redouble determination, which passives also don't like negatively affect redouble determination, which is quite good, right? And then you also don't have to deal with the fact of knocking them down, removing your shock passive. So I think it works really nicely for this node design if Kabam keeps this up, or starts adding this in other places like War or Alliance Quest. I don't know why, I think my phone's going off, I'm sorry if you guys hear that. But yeah, so this Gully just decides to start spamming her SP1. I wanted to try to get to the SP2 while I have my energy vulnerability passive on her, but she was just spamming this SP1. It was really getting annoying in this fight, but I really just need like 2 SP2s, I think, and that should just about deal with her. And finally, once I get her up to the SP2, I don't have to quite worry about that anymore. So I'm just trying to close out this fight. I have my Energize. I need to knock her down so I don't miss, obviously. For this specific fight, Nimrod's probably not like the best champion, but still, like, 50% of her health is gone in a single SP2, so I just need to get back up to an SP2 once. And here I'm just going to like try to bait out a heavy, I think. Yeah. I just want to make sure she doesn't throw another SP1, so I'm going to go for a full combo here to push her to SP2, and I just need to get off one more SP2 in this fight. So I really like the way that he has the fact that his shocks are passive, plus we know Omega Sentinel is coming in one of the next updates. We don't know which one. Oh wait, no, we do know which update it is, I think. I don't remember which month it is, but she actually has a synergy with Nimrod that will make it also incinerate effects. So this fight here, it didn't go quite as I planned. I'll be 100% honest. I wanted to show that he works for Can't Stop Won't Stop, and I was like, oh, this fight is pretty cool. It's that one in 7.3.1. It's the Muscle Wizard Riot Can't Stop Won't Stop lane that's meant for like Mystic Champions, and I wanted to show it off because I was like, oh wow, this has a lot of cool stuff to show off a lot of Nimrod's utility, but like, I just wasn't playing too well, and I wasn't like using my brain properly as well. It was kind of an issue. So I start to do a little bit better in the fight, but what I wanted to show is that his SP2 has the Unstoppable buff and the passive shocks, and so you can do Can't Stop Won't Stop, you can take a Magneto, and there's just like one issue that I run into here is I throw the SP2, oh, I don't do it here. I think I like failed on this fight really hard because I threw the SP2 while he was unstoppable. So because the Unstoppable buff that you gain during your SP2, it makes him an okay counter for Can't Stop Won't Stop. I won't say it makes him a great counter, but considering a lot of his damage comes from his SP2, it allows you to take it quite nicely. So that would be just about wrapping up this video. I'm thinking about trying to get one more, maybe 2 more videos out about Nimrod. He's just a champ I've been enjoying playing a lot. I hope you guys have been enjoying these videos, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.